with Wasteland, the production design was limited by the scale of the budget, and everything was basically, if we can get it, great. If not, let's see if we can cope without it. So, for example, in Scott's hideout, we just sort of begged, stole, and borrowed as much stuff as we could to fill the place, as long as it kind of fitted in with the script. Whereas this time around, we've actually got a budget that we've allocated for production design. With having a budget to play with this time around, it means that we get to do a lot more exploration of the characters and their costumes and other things connected with the film. So we really want to push the idea that every frame should tell the story.
So my role as production designer on the film is basically taking the script and doing conceptual drawings to really bring the sort of world that our characters are set into life. So I do anything from set design to costumes, characters, and storyboarding. So it all starts off with the script page. That's the sort of backbone to the whole film. So I read through the script and look at scenes or moments in the script that really stand out to me, something that I think will be very impactful. I'll get an idea, it'll pop into my head, I'll sketch it down very roughly, pencil drawings. I'll put them in a folder that Tom will look at later on, and then from there we'll sort of refine one particular image. I'll put it into a Photoshop file, colour grade it, add details, and then finalise it in a JPEG file I'll send off back into the folder and to be reviewed later on. It's a very back and forth process, so it's been quite interesting to take as many different images as I can to really represent the film as a whole. What's interesting for me on this film is that I'm kind of used to doing sci-fi films and strange fantasy movies and things like that, so it's been really interesting to just do a very low-key, real-world set movie. But it's also been a big challenge because in terms of the script it might only say the van drives down the road, and I have to kind of visualise that, so it's almost, I find looking at reference materials, online images, going for walks in woods in the real world a big help, and then I can actually draw from nature and from actual real life to really sort of get a sense of the environment that our characters are going to be situated in. So it's been a real challenge, and you wouldn't think it would be because it's just drawing a path or drawing some woods, but it's been very interesting. Yeah, so also thinking about atmosphere of the film, the actual theme of the movie or the genre that I'm working in. You can take something like a forest and draw it, and you can draw it in a variant of different ways. So you could draw it kind of beautiful, romantic, light-hearted, again, fantastical, or you can take it more down a darker, sinister route. So it's knowing what kind of genre I'm working in and bending the drawings towards that genre. So I might do branches come around the characters and sort of enveloping them, making it very claustrophobic, very shadowy. You're using a lot of dark grade-scale toning, just to really bring the sense that this is quite a sinister world or quite a dark genre that we're going into. So when it comes to drawing an image, my first step is obviously working at my drawing desk, taking either a particular scene that Tom has outlined or something that I've chosen from the script, and drawing an image, that being okayed by Tom, and from there I drew a very, very rough, very quick pencil sketch. I'll scan that into the computer, use Photoshop to enhance the actual lines and neaten that all up, so I've got a very definite image. From there I then do a whole grayscale, which is basically just colouring the image and using the shadow with literally just grayscale, so just grey tones and black tones, to really give really bring the image to life. And then from there literally just colour the entire image. After that I add a background, depending on what the image might be. It might be an entire landscape, in which case there'd be many different layers to add, or it might just be a character design, so I'd maybe just put a real basic shade in the background just to highlight the character. So that's the conceptual design work that I do for the film, but I also do the storyboarding. Again, that's a case of me reading the script, taking it each page by page, breaking it down into all the different scenes, and then doing rough sketches. I usually do it in very much small thumbnails on an A4 piece of paper, before I then transfer that to a template that I've already pre-designed in the right aspect ratio for the film. There I do the more complex drawings, so I add all the details, and each drawing is very much its own piece of individual artwork. It's difficult to sometimes work a particular shot. It's sometimes better if I start with a separate blank piece of paper, and I'll really struggle with a certain shot. It might be a character walking into a room, and I think, well, how can I do that dynamically, or what's the best way to do that? And it's just literally a case of taking 4 empty boxes and sketching the whole thing out in sequence. And then I'll do it in a different way on a separate piece of paper, and then maybe a different way on a third piece of paper. Each piece of paper represents the same shot, but done in different angles. And it might be a case that I'll take the second image from the first piece of paper and the third image from the second piece of paper and amalgamate them together to make the shot work. Other times it'll just be a case of just drawing it out and it just working very smoothly first time round. It's quite fun to explore the ideas of the film at this point. Plus also the other great thing about seeing the storyboards coming through is that you start getting a sense of the film and you start getting to see how the film's going to look. So in terms of the character design, it's been really interesting again because I'm used to drawing creatures and sort of monsters and things like that. It was really interesting just to take some normal, everyday, contemporary human characters. Obviously this film's set in the woods, so I used, again, a lot of reference photos. I looked at mounting gear, realistic mounting gear, and even things down to the boots and the bootlaces, things like that, and the hats that they wear. And drew that into the character. But then on top of that, it's also conceptualizing what the character represents. So it might be changing those, it might be taking a realistic jacket but then changing it slightly to make it suit the characters. So for instance, one of the characters might have a military background, and so his clothes have got to represent that. You've got to look at the character as soon as he steps into the room and understand where that character's come from to a certain extent. What I like about working with John is nothing phases him. It's simply a case of, okay, well, let's see how we can work that into the script in an organic way as opposed to just crowbarring something in. And sometimes we'll do some designs for this, for some ideas, and then further down the line we really work out that it's really not that possible to squeeze it in and I'll have it fit organically, or maybe there's a different way of doing it later on. So it's a real collaborative process, and it's great because it's a process where we explore ideas. There's no ideas that are sort of bad ideas, but again, it's much better to do this in this design process phase as opposed to waiting until we get to being on set and then trying something and figuring out that that's not going to work and we've wasted time and money on set. Getting the special makeup effects and the practical effects sort of moved from the 2D into the 3D, getting them into the lab and getting them tested is going to be really exciting for me, and I think really exciting for future blogs so you guys can see what we're going to bring to the film.